Everybody, this is AI with Dr. Craig Hansen. I'm just really delighted to have Mike Rutherford here with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited that you've given us the time to hear from you. Why don't you tell us about your background a little bit and then what you're doing now?
Sure. I'm a lifelong educator, or I have spent my entire life in education of some sort. I've been obviously as a student, but I went right out of schools into becoming a teacher. And from there, I went into started using a lot of technology in my classroom, and eventually became a district technology coordinator. And that was right at the big spin up of the internet. And I left the school district I was an ed tech director for and went and joined a company, a small startup called Blackboard, which is an LMS company. And I started their K-12 group at Blackboard and brought the LMS into the K-12 market in 1999. So it was a big, huge land grab, if you will, of because everybody was looking. Well, they weren't necessarily looking for it, but they were. The internet was coming to all the classrooms. There were, everybody's getting computers, and they wanted to be able to do things online, and the LMS allowed them to do that. Fast forward a few years, I've been in I was obviously in the private sector, and after many years in the private sector, I returned to the classroom when we had the chance to move to Bangkok, Thailand, to work at the International School Bangkok. And I returned to the classroom, and it was very interesting that after so many years, the LMS was still the main platform that was inside the classroom. So I really was surprised by that because it's such a teacher-centered platform, and I was in such a student-centered environment. My school was incredibly student-centered. My classroom was student-centered, but I had this contradiction between my classroom and my classroom and what was going on online. So with a little bit of needling and push from my wife, she said, go build one, because I couldn't find anything to do it. So I went ahead and started building one in my classroom. And it went really, really well. I ended up leaving the classroom and starting the company. I got feedback and building one out of, I actually hired engineers who were much better coders than I was. And that, they changed my code, and we rebuilt version 2 out of our own purpose-built code. So now I'm actually the founder and CEO of Got Feedback. So I am still teaching one middle school English language arts class 3 times a week. I learned that term is called I'm eating my own dog food, which means I am using my software in a real world environment, because it actually ends up providing incredible amounts of feedback on making the platform better. But I still work with teachers and schools from all around the world that are using Got Feedback right now. So that's basically what we're doing. We're trying to help teachers move from being in a teacher-centered environment to truly a student-centered environment where they probably are in their classrooms already. Let's also do it online.
Yeah, that idea of using student data and helping that drive the teacher's response and give the information to the student and the families as well about where is your child at? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Where do they need support? And letting the child be the center of that rather than we have a curriculum that we need to meet and exams that have to be done. I do agree with you about learning management systems being really teacher focused around delivering the content that kids have to get through. So where is the next step then you see the next evolution of technology serving the needs of students that teachers use?
Well, I truly believe we're in a very good place for that, because we are shifting from the teacher side to making it about the student. And what's really interesting about this is that businesses have already done this. They did this almost 20 years ago with what's called customer relation management software, where they had their entire organization was able to follow a customer's journey from being a lead or a prospect to becoming a customer and then keeping them a customer, where the entire company can see that one person's record and participate in that one person's record throughout their journey with the company. Well, let's change the vocabulary a little bit and think of the student learning journey, which we all have from kinder or kindergarten, wherever you are, what you call, pre first year or first grade. You have that student learning journey that goes through 12 to 13 years before they go to university. And we usually don't we don't have software that actually helps teachers manage that student learning process, the day-to-day interactions online, or the day-to-day interactions that you could have online throughout their whole journey. And so I think that what we're doing is incredibly unique, because you're enabling the whole village, if you will, the whole school, to participate in a student's learning journey, along with the parents and all other stakeholders that may be in there, your counselors, your learning specialists, to other co-teachers. And just that right there does a lot of different things, because now you can get into meeting the needs of all your diverse learners, personalizing learning. You can do competency-based education. Maybe you're doing standards-based grading. You're really wanting to work on the soft skills, because I know this conversation that you and I are having is going to shortly switch over to a little bit on the AI side, because that's the name of this podcast. In the focus of this podcast is in an LMS. The problem with an LMS is that it's transactional. It is a transaction between the teacher and the student. And AI has changed the game of education. Because if I'm a teacher, let's say I'm a professor, or I'm a teacher, and I present content, or I present an opening engagement with them and provide them information, and then they go off and are asked to do something and return it back to me to show that they know they're learning, generative AI does that really, really well. As we know, because we've all know the big kerfuffles that have gone on over the last year and a half about AI detection. And really, the true best AI detector that we have is the teacher. And if the teacher knows their students really well, if they all of a sudden go from being a 15 or 16-year-old writing to looking like they're a 35-year-old compliance attorney and writing that way, you know that jump has happened. AI might have been involved. And the way to know that is you can go back and see all their writing and capture all that stuff as it goes along, as we do when we capture the student learning journey. So I
Mm.
think that's where we're going to shift away from transactional platforms to ones that really focus on dialogic feedback, where we're going to have online conversations and capture learning as it's occurring. Because we're going to get into something really cool, what you can do with AI and machine learning and natural language processing later in this conversation.
So I'm in preparation for a masterclass that I'm running tomorrow on AI with educators who are in the Ministry of Education in New South Wales and Australia, and with other principals and leaders and teachers. Such a diverse range of people in the audience. And I'm just thinking about the slides that I was preparing and developing a table which had different curriculum frameworks,
Mhm.
from think to differentiated learning, constructivism, and comparing different components of them. And I used ChatGPT to do that. And of course, there was a chat and some words in there, and that flow of conversation. There were some words or vocabulary that was used in one of the frameworks that I thought, I'm not really quite sure that my understanding of that word is the same as what the creator, the theorist of that theory was thinking, had in their mind. So I was asking ChatGPT, please explain to me what these words mean. And then we ended up with this table, which I've stuck on the slides. And I've also included a link, a share link to the conversation, so that the people in the audience, once they get my slides, they can see the conversation, they can copy it and continue that conversation on. But there was certainly a jump that's evidenced in the chat, where my learning and my understanding of the meaning of that framework got deeper. And I can now apply that in different ways because I understand the concepts more robustly. And the evidence is the chat. Is that what you meant about there being that evidence of the jump?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So what we're seeing is we see teachers who are working with students every single day, and they provide feedback. There's tons of formative assessments going on, whether it's through conversation, or whether it's through written writing, whether it's through question and answer or peer feedback, all that kind of data that is generated. We also, I mean, the the best thing to do is to be able to try to capture some of that conversational data, whether it's between human, or eventually when if it's between the AI, and capturing that in
Mm.
one spot, so you can see, as the teacher, you can see the impact. You need to be able to see their growth over time.
Mm,
because I mean, I'm sure you can imagine how class has changed in the last year and a half if you just presented content to students for 2 days and then had them come back 3 or 4 days later with something you know a deliverable of some sort, whether it's an essay,
mm,
a paper, or something, explaining that they're understanding. And we know that Chat GPT or Gemini can do a fantastic job at that, especially if the prompt is written correctly. And students are resilient. They're smart. They're going to
mm,
figure it out and have figured it out many times. So to be able to capture as much qualitative learning evidence as you can along the way is incredibly important, because you can go back and see how things are, not to try to catch the student being wrong, but to see their growth over time. And is there any growth over time? If there's not, then you're in charge of making sure that you do something different so that you can meet the student where they are and lead them to new place in learning. um, what's super interesting is as you start capturing that feedback, is that is instructional gold. I mean, I'm talking about that as you talk about the learning jumps and what they're learning and their question and answers. And if you're capturing that conversation and using dialogic feedback along the way, you can also use AI and also natural language processing to actually analyze that and start remembering about that student. And that's where things get really, really cool. And I apologize, I'll start using the vernacular of a middle school teacher because I am a middle school teacher. I may even call you dude. I apologize, but that's what happens.
all good.
But once you're capturing that data and you're using tools, a tool set that's easy
Mm,
for teachers and schools to use, you can start looking at data and having analysis being done of the overall interactions along the way, not just transactional things like you may use with some of the education, the AI wrappers that are out there, where you may take a document and paste it in, get feedback, take that back out, paste it in somewhere else and give it to a student. That becomes a transaction. That's given, take, or you're giving, then you're giving it back to them. And there's not this whole connected learning growth thing that we want to be able to do and be able to see that growth over time. And that's what got feedback really in that thing that's next in the LMS is what we're doing and what we're building.
mm. So analyzing the transactions must be important, but then also looking at the overall learning journey to identify. I think contexts are really important, Mike. What do you think about that? I enjoy motorbikes. And so if I was having part of my learning journey was including motorbiking as the context for maths or science or social studies or whatever the subject is, but it was within a context that I understood and the analysis could identify that's a good context to use and I start getting more of that, I'm going to enjoy that more and focus more. What else do you think what else can AI or the analysis add to that learning journey for a student to increase that engagement and therefore the achievement?
Well, one is I think AI with a mixture of other tools can do some fantastic uh, deep dives on individual students and their learning over time. But also, let's take it back one step farther for a teacher to be able to look across the entire class and see what's going on with the whole entire class, maybe even on one assignment, and be able to see some of the nuance. As you know, Dr. Hanson, we see lots of data as teachers. And I mean, when I say data, I'm talking about qualitative learning evidence. I'm not talking about quantitative. I'm not talking about a graph or a chart or numbers or a spreadsheet. I'm talking about writing or problems or a dance or a speech or those kind of things. Well, what if we could use, I'm gonna say what if we can use uh, AI and natural language processing to look at that data over time, or look at that data and see things that will help us inform our instruction, not summatively. We're talking about literally formative assessment during our teaching cycle to see where students are. What are they understanding? What are they not getting? What can I do to change that? Where you and I, if we have 150 students or 140 students, to do that's going to be incredibly hard and time consuming because the labor hours is more than we have to do. But if we start using tools to do that, things get really interesting really quickly, not only at the individual level, but also at the systemic level, where you can start grouping kids by what they don't know or what they're not showing or what they haven't mastered yet, to working, knowing students that have mastered certain skills. Let's move them on to a new thing and really personalize learning. And I think it's absolutely brilliant talking about, quote Grant Wiggins here. You really, it's very hard to master something you're not passionate about. And if you can bring passion in and personalize it, you're going to go a lot farther. That if I was an English language arts teacher and I'm teaching you to write, that you wanted to write about motorbikes, well, let's write about motorbikes, whether it's narratives, whether it's informational, whether it's persuasive or argumentative. Go ahead and do that. Now, how does AI going to do that? Well, it might have some help from me because I'm going to know you as a learner, and I'm going to try to get to know you. With these tool sets we have here, is going to help me save so much time to become more efficient, that I get to do the important things that a teacher does, which is get to know my students and use those soft skills in communication, analysis, and collaboration, all that kind of stuff that's so important for them to learn and for us to use. We can let technology do some of the other things. And so it'll speed us up. And me sitting there going, okay, wow, Craig, my student here, he is not going to, I'm not going to make him go do an assignment on, a science assignment on ants, even though we're life sciences. Maybe we're going to go ahead and do it on motorbikes, and, the exhausts, the exhaust of a motorbike and what it has on the environment, and how that's changing the environment, and what can we do if it was electric, whatever it may be. Those kind of things you'll be able to do at an individual level, which is great.
So if you were looking back 5 years from now, and learning management systems, educators, school systems, kids, if we all made the changes that you foresee are the most powerful and made the moves that you think are most effective, what would it look like in a classroom? How would that be different to today?
Well, I think looking in classroom, we're truly personalizing learning. We're no longer using an LMS to teach to the middle, and putting something out. We are actually meeting each student where they need to be, or where they are, and helping lead them to new places. Um, Companies, like I said before, companies are already doing this. Salespeople are doing this. Customer service reps are doing this. They're doing it at the individual level because they figured out how to do that. Luckily, I learned this in the private sector and brought it into my classroom, and it changed the way that I interacted with kids, because now I was really capturing information about that individual student. So I see us shifting away from LMSs, because LMSs are transactional and they're about the teacher, and we know we need to meet the student, and we need to, like you said, going after a passion and meeting them where they are, so that they can learn what you want them to know and be able to do, and actually demonstrate mastery of that. We're going to have to be able to manage that, and do so with the help of things like AI and machine learning and natural language processing, to be able to do so. So I think you're going to see a whole change in the LMS. I mean, the LMS has been around for 25 years now. It was 1996, 1997, and it's still that same teacher thing. And that it's time for that to change and move, so that we actually can get and meet individual students where they are in their learning. So
Right.
I see that there'll be a whole new category of platforms that are coming through.
I'm imagining a customer relationship management system that everyone in the company gets to see and see where the customer is on the journey. And if we were a group of educators at a school with our different subject disciplines, and we could all see all the data on this individual student and see where they're at, as a teacher, as that form homeroom teacher who's now in charge of crafting the learning journey of the student, and I see that data too, I might reach out to Sarah and Michael and say, hey, as you can see on the data, we need your input here. Or that other teacher might proactively say, there's a missing understanding for your student in your class. I need to have some time in there to help them move along in that area of their learning journey. Do you imagine it will become more like that, where people are dropping in, and as the teacher, we are the crafter of the journey, rather than having to deliver 5 subjects in one day?
It's happening now. That's what our platform does. That's exactly what our platform does. So we have schools where your science teacher is looking in to see what the student's doing in math. and to see how they're doing. You have a
Mm.
counselor who's able to actually see all of the students' classes, and so they can go in not seeing grades or attendance or behavior. They're going in and seeing real live learning evidence, rough drafts, and question and answer, trial and errors. Uh, uh, just everything's right there where they can actually go in and see what's going on with that student. And the great thing is bringing in the parents in, also the
Mm.
family members, to be able to see real live learning evidence. It's really interesting to watch parents see student growth versus seeing grades, just seeing grades, where they can actually see that their student is writing informationally, and they were just writing a narrative. Now they've moved over to informational, and the student, they can actually see the reflection that was done, and how they explain the difference between the two modes of writing, where that's also being done in physics and everything else. So this kind of interaction across classrooms and across the entire school is exactly what I found when I was at International School Bangkok. We actually found this out accidentally, because I was working with a math teacher. I was teaching English language arts, and I added the math. The English teacher was like, okay, I'm sorry, the math teacher was like, okay, how can you find student data all the time? And you're able to, even when we go to meetings and we didn't have the student's name on the board, we want to know about someone's writing. You're able to throw up something they did in August versus something they did in November and put them right next to each other and say, see how they've grown. And she goes, how do you do that? I want to be able to do it. And so I added her to the class, and Stacy was just going along. And then one day she was doing word problems with students, and realized one of her students was having a really hard time. He was a really good math student, but when they got to word problems, he just fell apart. And she realized, okay, there's something wrong here. Let's go see what he's doing in English language arts. She jumped over and looked at the student in my class and found out that he wasn't at a sixth grade reading level. He was really at about a third grade reading level. And she realized, okay, well, he knows numbers great, can do all those kind of things, but she really needed to offer scaffolding for him on
Mm.
the reading part, because he couldn't comprehend the sixth grade, seventh grade reading levels that were being given in that. And that was like, we were like, aha, that's really cool. I didn't, it's like, we didn't set it up that way. We just had it that way, where we could actually, and then we added it and made it very open, that I could go see what the science teacher doing. I could go see what the math teacher doing, and vice versa. And then of course the learning specialist was like, I want it all. I want the student, and I want to be able to see what they're doing in all their classes. And she goes, do you realize what this does for me? Is that I don't have to go around and ask each teacher, how are they doing? What are they working on? Everything
Mm.
else. I have it right there. Like, it's Googleable, it's like, I know that's not
Mm.
a word, but you know where I'm going. It's right there. And it's such a contrast to what the LMS was, because the LMS came
Mm.
from higher education, and
Mm.
higher education professors usually don't work with each other across disciplines about
Mm.
a student, but we sure do in the K to 12 world. We definitely want to have that kind of thing across the whole school.
So, Mike, how do people get hold of you or have a look at your learning system and access that?
Well, you can actually try it for free and run it with your classes. You can even use the AI feedback tools, and use our custom prompt manager to provide feedback to your students on their learning evidence. And it is a co-creation platform. So you and the student are the ones who are working together on this. It's not just the onus on the teacher to put everything in. The large amount of work that's done is the student upload or putting the stuff or asking questions inside of Got Feedback. So it makes it super easy. And you can go to at gotfeedback.com and start up your own classroom, and just sign in and go right in. And there's a tour there that'll explain a little bit about it and what to do. And you can try it out right from our website.
Beautiful. Mike, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you giving us some of your Sunday to share about AI and learning management systems and where they're going. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Hansford, for having me, and good luck with your presentations next week.